Iran and the United States are officially giving toxic geopolitical situationship, and now Tehran is basically telling the rest of the world, stay out of America's group chat or prepare to get unfollowed in real life. Iran's top security official, Mohsen Rezai, has warned that any country joining what Tehran calls America's economic war will be treated as an enemy. Yes, besties, apparently neutrality is disappearing faster than your salary after debit order day. Rezai told Iranian state television that Tehran is asking countries, especially its neighbors, not to participate in U.S. economic restrictions against Iran. But Iran's message is basically, first we talk, then we warn you. Then, apparently things get spicy. Rezai said Iran would initially negotiate with countries supporting Washington and ask them to distance themselves from the United States. And if they refuse, Iran says it could target that country's interests. Bro basically unveiled a 3-step foreign policy plan. Step 1, can we talk? Step 2, are you sure? Okay, bet. And Tehran is promising what Rezai called a seismic retaliation. Not economic discomfort, not strongly worded PDF energy. Seismic. My guy chose vocabulary normally reserved for earthquakes. But Washington is also not exactly arriving with herbal tea and mediation pamphlets. U.S. President Donald Trump has promised what he described as the most crushing economic operation yet against Iran, warning of major economic consequences for countries providing Tehran with what Washington considers an economic lifeline. So basically, America has entered the chat saying, anybody helping Iran, you're getting cooked too. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent then turned the diplomatic temperature from medium to air fryer when he reportedly said, you're either with us or against us. Yes. Nothing says sophisticated 21st century diplomacy quite like turning international relations into a WhatsApp poll with only 2 options. And there's one very large elephant sitting inside this geopolitical living room, China. China reportedly buys more than 80% of Iran's exported oil shipments. So while Washington is telling countries to choose sides, everyone is now looking at Beijing like, Sue. You seeing this email? More details about the planned U.S. sanctions are expected from Bessent on Monday. Iran, meanwhile, says the whole secondary sanctions strategy is basically America trying to become the global financial admin. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai accused Washington of attempting to exercise what he called extraterritorial sovereignty over independent UN member states and argued that such secondary sanctions have no foundation in international law. Translation into Gen Z, Iran is saying, who made America moderator of the entire planet? Meanwhile, diplomacy is struggling harder than somebody trying to explain why they left you on read for 6 months. Efforts to end the conflict remain stalled, while the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes on Earth, remains effectively blocked. Iran closed the strait shortly after U.S. and Israeli strikes on February 28th, and commodity markets immediately started behaving like somebody had thrown a grenade into the group budget. Oil prices jumped, fertilizer prices jumped, and somewhere every economist opened Excel and whispered, oh no. Iran has now reportedly given special permission for Iraqi oil tankers to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. But the broader shipping situation remains unclear. Tehran says the strait stays closed until the United States lifts its naval blockade. Iran and Oman are still discussing arrangements for shipping through the waterway, but no agreement has reportedly been reached. So currently, the Strait of Hormuz is basically running on permission required, admin approval pending. Egypt has now entered the conversation, trying to become that one mature friend separating 2 people at a party before somebody throws a chair. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati spoke with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi about de-escalation and what Egypt called a return to the diplomatic path. They reportedly discussed negotiations involving Oman and Iran, as well as possible implementation of the U.S.-Iran memorandum, with the ultimate goal of reaching a wider agreement addressing regional security concerns. In other words, Egypt is standing between Washington and Tehran, saying, guys, can everybody please stop escalating for 5 minutes? Araghchi also spoke with Pakistan's Army Chief, Field Marshal Asim Munir, discussing ways to strengthen peace, stability, and security in the region, which sounds excellent. because at this stage, the Middle East desperately needs people discussing peace before everybody finishes discussing targets. And that is where things currently stand. America says helping Iran could cost you economically. Iran says helping America could make you an enemy. China is sitting on massive Iranian oil purchases. Egypt is pushing diplomacy. Oman is trying to keep negotiations alive. The Strait of Hormuz remains a geopolitical choke point, and the rest of the world is basically watching two major powers shout, "Choose your fighter," while global markets quietly ask, "Could you perhaps not?" Because when Washington and Tehran start playing geopolitical chicken, it is ordinary people thousands of kilometers away who eventually discover that their fuel, food, and fertilizer have somehow joined the premium subscription plan. Welcome to international diplomacy in 2026. Nobody is calm. Everybody has sanctions. And apparently the block button now comes with aircraft carriers.